Am I the a-hole for throwing my niece, her husband, and their infant daughter out of my house? I am 62F. I am a military veteran who served in a combat zone. I have been diagnosed with PTSD and major depressive disorder. I usually say it's because of my military service to avoid the stigma of mental illness, but to be honest, it's mostly because of my childhood. I have what is called complex PTSD, which is caused by many traumatic events over a long period of time, rather than one incident or a shorter period. My trauma started when I was about 5. My mother divorced my father and married a psychiatrist. She didn't know at the time that he was a paranoid schizophrenic. Needless to say, I suffered greatly at his hands, mostly emotional abuse, but some physical abuse also. My mother died in 2022. She was my rock. I kind of mentally fell off a cliff and gained a reputation in my family of not being able to take care of myself adequately, which is, to be honest, is true. Basically, the trash in my bedroom was waist-high, and the rest of the house was also a mess. My brother took all my pets away from me and took them to the shelter. The family, they live in a city about 80 miles away, came up and helped me clean my house. In order to try to help me with my mental health, it was recommended that my pregnant niece and her husband move in with me. I agreed. My niece and I are extremely close and have had a lifelong love for each other that can't be overstated. I have no children of my own, mostly due to my lifelong battles with mental illness. Despite being mentally ill, I had a very successful military career and also had a high-paying job in civilian life. I became disabled in 2009. I receive SSDI and a pension from my former government job. As a result, I'm a homeowner. I live in a senior complex. Adults are allowed to live with me with no explanation, so having my niece and her husband here is no problem. The problem is that when she moved in, she was pregnant. We agreed to try to keep the baby on the down low and try to mask her pregnancy whenever she came in and out of the house. She refused to hide her pregnancy and became very angry with me whenever I mentioned it. We haven't talked about this, so I'm not sure why it makes her so angry. I can be fined and or foreclosed upon if I am breaking the HOA rules, so I am taking a great risk. Her husband is a nice enough person most of the time. He was fairly recently a drug addict. He is a convicted felon, but I don't know what he was convicted of. At some point after my niece became pregnant, they were living in their car. I told them to come live with me, but my brother vetoed that idea. We have a very large and very close family. My older brother is the boss of me, so I do what he says. LOL. Later, my niece's husband, let's call him Jerry, became clean and sober, and my brother said it was okay for them to move in. Depressed people don't do well living alone, so it was thought of as a win-win for all of us. My niece, let's call her Peg, has 5 dogs, none of them house-trained. I have a house with a yard, so that's okay. I have asked her to work on house training them, and she says they are not trainable. Jerry is volatile and unpredictable. If you thought my childhood was bad as I described it, his was much worse. I empathize with him because of that. One of the problems with being mentally ill is accepting it as a disease and not a character failure. I've been depressed to a greater or lesser extent most of my life. Despite this, I was a very highly regarded employee in all the places I worked. So I feel I am a pale shadow of the fairly functional and highly successful person I used to be. Plus, I am dealing with aging. Anyway, it's very personally humiliating to feel like I am not the person I used to be. Because of Jerry's past, I thought he would be understanding of my mental illness. Peg has also had a fair amount of traumatic events in her life, and she suffers from depression also. Anyway, they are not understanding, they are not supportive. Peg likes to cook, so she uses a lot of dishes and pots. Because she was pregnant and now a new mom, she would use that as an excuse for not cleaning up. I was told I would need to step up and help more than I was used to doing. This put a tremendous amount of pressure on me mentally. Imagine knowing what you have to do and being completely unable to act upon it. That's depression. Anyway, it came to a head, as I knew it would from before the time they moved in. I failed to meet their expectations as to keeping the house clean, including the floors. I have all tile and laminate, but I had 5 dogs and 6 puppies peeing and pooping on my floors. They accused me of blowing them off, being lazy, etc. By the way, lazy is the worst thing you can call a depressed person. It wasn't that they were upset with me for the amount of housework I was doing, it was the way it was communicated to me by Jerry. He absolutely exploded on me and screamed in my face. I have to admit I didn't react that well to that treatment in my own home, so a fair amount of FUs came out of my mouth. He capped it off with calling me crazy lady. I gave them a 30-day notice to leave my house that day. My brother negotiated a reconciliation between us, and we made up. I told them they could stay, but I was filled with a feeling of dread. To explain a bit more, my stepfather was mentally ill, and it was like living on the slopes of a volcano. You never knew when or why he would choose to explode. He was paranoid, so most of his explosions were because of his delusions and not rational, so could not be predicted. After suffering this type of childhood trauma from the age of 5 to 17, I was not happy about living with another volcano in my house. I desperately tried to help with the house, knowing that one day it wouldn't be good enough, and he would explode again. In the meantime, Jerry's father died, which was traumatic to him, and Peg gave birth to an absolutely gorgeous baby girl. Peg's mom came to stay with her 2 dogs, who are also not house-trained. Some of the puppies were adopted, but now I have 10 incontinent dogs in my house. Peg's mom, who I am perfectly friendly with, broke her shoulder in a parking lot mishap when Peg was in the hospital giving birth, so she can't help with the housework. I had spent the last 2 days working my ass off, doing dishes and cleaning the floors. I actually hurt myself. I worked so hard on the floors. I had been soaking the last of the dishes in the sinks in the kitchen when I fell asleep. Apparently, that is a mortal sin because they need a clean sink to wash their infants' bottles. So Jerry blew up at me and screamed in my face again. When I started crying, he called me crazy lady again. Now keep in mind, since that incident I have been only cleaning up after myself and not doing their dishes for them. Both sinks are currently full of dirty dishes and have been that way for about a week. Anyway, I said they had to leave. After living in a traumatic situation for basically my entire childhood, I refused to live like that again. Being pressured to clean up after them, their dogs, and myself under the threat of an imminent screaming match is having a very negative effect on my mental health. The last time I was under this kind of pressure, I ended up in the mental hospital. Since then, tensions have subsided. I am much more relaxed because I am refusing to clean up after them and their dogs. Jerry has cleaned the floor and corralled the dogs in a pen near the sliding glass door so they can go into the yard. Something he should have done long ago. The dogs have also destroyed the drip irrigation system in the backyard and chewed through my vacuum cord. I've spoken to them and told them I refuse to be screamed at, lectured to, and humiliated in my own home. I am an adult woman, albeit with many flaws. They seem to think I should want them to stay because I can't take care of myself. They said they were leaving, and Jerry used a tone like it was a threat. I calmly said, okay. Jerry's father died, as I have said, and he says he is inheriting a large amount of money as a result. I'm skeptical, but they said they will be leaving soon. If his dad is so rich, why were they living in their car? Anyway, am I the a-hole for kicking Jerry, Peg, and their infant out of my house?